So why is it though that for so long the only way that we could tell was after someone had died and by looking at their brain?
Oh, there wasn't enough testing. The type of testing that was required didn't exist. And so now they know how to do the test. Texas actually developed something called the best practices model because we're such a rural state. And it is a handout designed to take to any physician and say, here is the blueprint of how to do a diagnosis of dementia. And it lists all of the different tests that would be done. So Texas has the best practices model, and I will send Sharon a copy of that because it's hard for you to find online. I'll send her a copy of that and she'll get that out to you.
You know, we had talked about both dementia and sleep apnea, and
No, we didn't. We talked about dementia and sleep apnea.
Not dementia, I'm sorry, depression.
Yeah.
We talked about depression. And is depression a precursor to dementia?
People with depression seem to be in a higher risk category, especially if it's untreated. And we know now that about 10 years before what we would consider somebody beginning to look like dementia happens, depression is there and needs to be treated. So depression needs to be treated, and depression medicine will be the one medicine your loved one does not come off of. They will stay on till the end of life.
What about sleep apnea? We had a question
Sleep
about sleep
apnea
apnea.
develops, that is a vascular dementia thing. And the person, sleep apnea, people don't realize a lot how dangerous it is. Every time that person stops breathing, they get very, very close to a heart attack. Their heart actually begins to move into the rhythm to have a heart attack, and then they breathe again. So I've known people that have 95 interrupted episodes a night. That's 95 times their brain stopped getting oxygen, and 95 times they almost had a heart attack. The hard part is your loved one never saw a snorkel on their mouth at night, on their nose at night, so they're not going to wear the machine. It's more for you and I with sleep apnea. But once a person has dementia, it's very difficult to get them to keep the machine on because they don't know why it is. Why do they have this thing on that they've never had before?
Right. We did talk about when something happens in a family and the person does not have the connection to understand it. For example, there is a death in the family.
Right.
Is that something that we should tell a person with dementia? If so, how do we go about doing that? Or is it something that we should keep from them?
Typically by stage 5, we would not be including them in death. That person would simply not be here when they're looking for them. And for us to do otherwise means they suffer through the death over and over again. In Washington, D.C., I had a patient who, for 3 months, every morning at 10:31, she got a phone call that told her mother had just died. And every day the staff had to watch her reaction to that. And she would actually fall down on the floor and we would have to sedate her. She would become so upset. And every night when the day shift left, we would think, let this be the last day she has that memory. And it finally did become the last day. But why would we want to do that? And for some families, they don't realize until they're at the funeral how bad mama or daddy is. Because remember, it's their marriage and you're just their kid and it's none of your business. So you as the adult child may have no idea at all how bad your parent actually is until they're in the funeral setting. And then they're very confused about what's going on and who has died. So it is a case by case thing, and it's based on the type of dementia they have and what stage of dementia they're in.
What if the person, though, is asking those direct questions about
where is mama?
Where is mama? Is my mom still alive?
Then it's, yeah, but she's at the grocery store. Why would we? Because you're traumatizing the person. Why in the world would you want to do that? You're not helping them. It's not a growing brain. It's a dying brain. And our goal is to keep people calm.
One of our folks online was saying that my mom has been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, but I'm seeing a lot of vascular dementia signs based on what you spoke of today. Says, I help her shower, but for the last year, she's needing more and more clues on what to do to complete the shower.
Yeah, that's not stage 2. Mild cognitive impairment is stage 2. needing trouble to complete the shower is stage 5. So she's not in stage 2 of the disease. She is in stage 5.
Would helping explain the steps as you go through be helpful in this case?
So a couple of things about bathing. Number one, it's our most complex ADL. It requires more than 4 dozen steps to take a bath successfully. Number two, what's the purpose of bathing? Is it to terrorize somebody or is it to clean skin? And if the best way today is to clean skin is with a washcloth, then a washcloth is fine. Even under licensed buildings, every state says your loved one will be bathed 2 to 3 times a week, depending on which state it is. So other than incontinent care, which must be done correctly every time, bathing is, if they don't need a bath, why am I terrorizing them with it? And if all they really need is a washcloth bath, I mean, they're not out working on the highway. All they need is a washcloth bath. So we don't need to traumatize them or the caregiver trying to get them to do this. But what she is describing is not mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment, you wouldn't even notice anything was wrong with your mother. And she would not be, I mean, you'd have to be living with her and closely watching. And so it's not unusual that people get diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment and they're actually much further in the disease process. It has to do with, did you see the right doctor? Mm-hmm. And did you, nothing on the license says I barely graduated. You know that, right? And somebody had to be at the bottom of the class, right? So that's not a stage 2 person. That's a stage 5 person.
Got another question here from a diagnosis to what I'm really seeing. Mom was diagnosed with early vascular dementia in July of 2020, but she's having trouble with words and sentences, is confused and scared, wants to go home, can still toilet herself, but can't bathe or eat correctly, often just plays with her food, is up throughout the night. Where are we really at?
That's a stage 6 person and they should be in a community.
Okay.
Yeah, that is stage 6. And what you're witnessing is she's having some sort of stroke activity. So the stroke has killed the files on this, but she can still toilet herself. So it hasn't gotten there. And what's unusual is when you look at your staging tools today, what you're going to see is that for most people, bladder incontinence starts in stage 5, but bowel incontinence is stage 6, unless it's vascular dementia, in which case bowel incontinence may begin as early as stage 4 because of some sort of vascular event.
For someone who has had long-standing OCD and hoarding issues and then develops dementia,
we're going to pray for you.
Yeah. Does the part of the brain that has the OCD, does that eventually?
It eventually goes away because of the amount of brain damage. But hoarding is an OCD behavior that's related to perfectionism. This perfectly good newspaper has lots of stories in it. Why would I want to throw it away? This magazine has lots of information. Why would I throw it away? This empty carton could be used for something. Why would I throw it away? And so it's based on a perfectionism. It's not treatable. And you're simply going to wait until their dementia progresses enough that this stops. The other thing is, are they really hoarding or do they no longer understand how to take trash out? So a lot of times sons and daughters don't realize something's wrong until they come into mom and dad's house and all of a sudden it's full of trash and it was never like that before. But this person sounds like their person's been a lifetime hoarder. So you're not going to treat that.
Okay. For someone who's been diagnosed, let's say stage 2, is there really any way to prevent from going to stage 3, 4, 5?
No, but the medication was intended to be started in stage 2 or 3. And for 70% of people, it would slow the disease enough that the person would progress on to end of life, die of heart attack or stroke, and never get to stage 5 of the disease. So that's what the medicine was intended for. It's just that in our country, most people are not diagnosed until stage 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if, taking the medication by stage 5 really isn't going to help at that point.
It actually draws the disease out 2 to 3 more years, which is $200,000 to $300,000 in care typically. And you're drawing out the worst part of the disease when there is the most brain damage.
Yeah. One of the caregivers would like to know some suggestions, tips for family members whose loved one has now been placed into memory care or assisted living. Obviously, we know it's very difficult for a lot of the communities to keep skilled staff. And so how can you, as the caregiver with your family member in a community, help the staff to give better care to their loved one? Without being the know-it-all that comes in.
Call your legislator and have them put up actual training that we're required to do that actually follows the disease and makes sense. So a lot of times, what you're going to find out is after today, you know more than most professional staff caregivers. And that is very frustrating for all of you, because you go into a community and you actually know more than the staff does. And so that's another hard part of being the family caregiver, is correcting people and insisting that they give your loved one the right care.
Can you talk a little bit about using physical therapy with someone who has dementia? This particular person's husband is 82 and is participating in physical therapy to prevent falls.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
That's like saying, I mean, the falls are coming because of brain damage, and the physical therapy is not going to protect the motor cortex and the premotor cortex because they're destroyed during the disease. So it's great that they're having that interaction, but it's not going to prevent the disease process. And in all likelihood, you're annoying the person with dementia.
Yeah.
They're agitated by this. They're not enjoying it. They're not enjoying speech therapy. They're not enjoying physical therapy. They may be enjoying the interaction that someone's talking to me, but that doesn't mean they're getting a benefit from it, okay, because of their brain damage.
For someone who is living with dementia, with caregiver, what should we be looking for in terms of pain when we're doing a daily check with pain?
You should be using your pain assessment in advanced dementia tool, pain add, and that's what we use for pain assessment.
Great. Let's go to questions here in the room.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to come to you with a mic so everybody at home can hear you.
Hi, Tam. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Kathy, and my mother passed away last March 8th. So my father moved in on March 10th. My father has hearing aids, doesn't wear them. He's way past cell phones. He's a charming, wonderful,
Pleasantly demented.
pleasantly, yeah, we got a lot going on. So we got the electric chair that goes up the stairs. We've got the 0-entry shower. I think I'm doing great, but like everybody else here, I'm pretty exhausted and spent. He wants to see my mom. He's good with the Lord. He's ready to go. We've done everything, said everything. My question is, and I think it's kind of a dumb one, will a heart attack take him, or like what will be, am I hoping for, I'm hoping for an easy passing.
You're hoping for he goes to sleep tonight and doesn't wake up in the morning.
Every time that I tuck him in, he say, like,
and every time you tuck him in, you say his prayers, and then you say that, actually, to put someone to bed, you first put them on the toilet to have them pee, and then you remember older bladders are folded bladders. So a folded bladder doesn't empty. So after he pees, now I'm going to brush his teeth, wash his face, wash his hands, because that water will cause his bladder to squeeze again, and now I've got a truly empty bladder. Then I'm going to take him to bed, and I'm going to wash his feet with a warm washcloth, because Mama would have done this, because Mama had to scrub those sheets on that scrub board, and you didn't put your dirty feet on her sheets because it took all day to clean that stuff, right? And if you have never had a warm washcloth on your feet right as you went to bed, do that for yourself tonight, but also do it for your loved one, because Mama did. Now I'm going to tuck him in like I do a baby. I'm going to tuck him in. Then I'm going to do his prayers with him. Now, if you don't like the prayer that says, what does it say? If I die tonight? Yeah, now lay me down to sleep. If I die, and I would always think as a little kid, why am I going to die? Why do they seem to think I'm not going to die in the night? There's actually another verse to that prayer, which says, when I wake in the morning light, I will live with God's delight. So you can always trade out the death one for the when I wake in the morning. But then I'm going to say the prayer, or I'm going to say the prayer with him, or I'm going to say the prayer and he's going to recite it, or he's going to say the prayer, and then I'm going to use the magic words, good night, I'll see you in the morning. Because when Mama said that, that meant what? Get up and run around the house or stay in bed. Because there's another parent in the house and he'll come pray with you, but Daddy's only pray with one hand. You will go sleep right now. So if I do those 4 things, I get his bladder empty, I wash his feet, I tuck him in, I say his prayers, I tell him good night, I'll see you in the morning, then I've got a real good chance of him going to sleep tonight and actually staying in bed. I've got a much higher probability of it. The other thing is, I have yet to meet a caregiver who doesn't think every single day, Lord, please let this be over tonight. Please let them just go to sleep and let this be done, because you're witnessing the devastation of this person. I believe if people with dementia knew what was happening to them, they'd climb the highest building they could find and run off of it, because it is so devastating of a disease. So your thoughts are normal to think, please let this be over. Most humans die of heart attack and stroke. People with dementia die of heart attack and stroke. Those with vascular dementia are more predisposed to die of heart attack or stroke. So that's what's going to happen.
But what I wanted to know, is it dementia that causes or is it just that's how he would go anyway? I was just trying to figure.
The brain runs the body.
Okay, yeah.
And then heart attacks can just happen, and strokes. Once you have dementia, you're predisposed now for strokes as well. So people with Alzheimer's have strokes. It's just that most strokes occur in the night. Most strokes are small and people don't notice them. But we all are going to die of heart attack and stroke. And in people with dementia, that doesn't change. It's just that what you're hoping is he doesn't live to stage 7 and he doesn't die of aspiration pneumonia, sepsis, and renal failure. That is the death from dementia. But understand that in the medical community, pneumonia is called the old man's friend because death from pneumonia is considered painless. Okay?
Thank you.
I have a question.
You have a microphone, so it's a dead giveaway.
Yeah. My husband has Lewy body dementia. Prior to his diagnosis, which brought about going to be diagnosed, he was clicking and buying stuff off Amazon all the time, multiples, et cetera, So we dealt with that somewhat, although he has always been very tech savvy. So what guidance? Oh, and now because of all that, everybody's got his number. He gives me his phone daily so that I can delete 50 or 60 unknown texts and as many phone calls, but they all have links. And I'm terrified. What guidance do you have to get rid of his cell phone when?
Oh my gosh, that cell phone got lost today. You know what? You're going to have to go get another one with a brand new number on it. And then when they call, you block them. Okay? Make sure that the number gets sent in to the agency that does the do not call.
Oh, we have.
Okay? And do that with the new phone. Okay, and get a different phone. Don't get an iPhone. Get a Cricket. Get something that's different because he'll have a harder time trying to figure out how to make it work. Okay, and then get the computer away from him. Unplug it. Lose.
Computer's gone, but
Okay.
I've had an iPhone. And it's like,
Yeah, get rid of the iPhone. Oops, they don't have those. It disappeared. It's gone away. And then get rid of the iPad where he can't see it. Because before we had Amazon, we'd go into a home and they'd have bought a dozen combs. I know somebody in Georgetown whose husband's bought 10 cars over a course of 4 months because he'd buy a car. And I don't know if y'all bought a new car recently. They don't longer use keys, you know, and he couldn't figure out how to make these cars work. And so he would go back and return it. Well, they don't give you your money back. And she was doing care for both parents and him. And she was so overwhelmed, she couldn't figure out that it wasn't the cars, it was dementia. So he very quickly went through almost $500,000 in cash. So we've got to protect them because it's not the same world and there are bad people out there trolling, looking for them. Okay, go to that Cricket flip phone. Honey, it's all I have.
my husband has FTD and he's living in memory care. And he's had some UTIs, and after going to the urologist, he has neurogenic bladder, that's what I'm really trying to say. And where he is, they don't really seem to mind that he thinks he has to go to the bathroom a lot and he doesn't go. But I think the urologist is wanting to put a catheter in him, which I don't think.
No. It increases the chance of infection. And oh my God, if I was your husband, I'd haunt you for the rest of your life. Just by a show of hands, how many men want a catheter? Yeah, nobody said that. And understand that the urologist is not a dementia specialist. So they're looking only at their specialty and what they were due, and y'all have to look at the whole picture of care for your loved one.
Hi, how important is it for my care partner to be formally evaluated? She's had like the quick MOCA test from a neurologist. The next step would be the more intensive neuropsychology test.
The neuropsychs. Yeah.
She refuses to sign the release form to have that testing done.
Mhm. That's why people don't get diagnosed until stage 5. You're doing everything you can to get him diagnosed, and the refusal. So go through your 9 dementias, take out the ones it can't be, and go back to the doctor, because that may be the closest way you're able to diagnose him right now.
I've really enjoyed this conference. Thank you.
Oh, most people don't say that. They leave here very sad with tears running from their face.
Pretty great. I'm a 92-year-old mom in skilled nursing, and she has vascular dementia. And we talked over the years, she didn't want to be in that state, but she still smiles occasionally and charms people. And the rest of the time she's asleep. So it's either asleep or maybe smiling, saying a few words.
And that's normal too, for them to begin to sleep more. At the end of the disease, you remember how you brought home your baby from the hospital? Did your baby walk and talk and write you letters and stay awake all day long? Or did your baby sleep all day long and woke up to 8 and be changed? That's where your loved one is going to go.
So she's, from what you said today, she's definitely stage 6, moving to 7. She is on hospice care, but has been for quite a while.
Oh, well, don't tell anybody that. Congress changed those laws, and they're trying to keep people on hospice for like a week, and we want you on there for a year.
Well, eventually 2 years, but no. Anyway, she's still on. And the physician mentioned that we could take her off everything that except pain meds, and, you know, take her off her blood pressure and her cardiac meds, which I think would probably lead to her death faster.
You know, it probably would lead to her death faster, but you also probably would remove her, and it would be unusual if you didn't see any change at all. You don't get to live to your 10th decade of life and not have some seriously strong DNA behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to feel guilty about doing that.
So that's your clue right there. If removing medicine that the doctor is telling you to remove would make you feel guilty, then leave the medicine in place. God will do what God is supposed to do. When it's her time, it'll be her time. Well, another thing about grief for y'all, those of you who have loved ones in their 90s, it takes about 10 years to grieve. It really does. For a spouse or a parent that you love, it takes about 10 years to really grieve. But because your mother's in her 90s, and because we don't like grief, we like you to be done in about 6 weeks, be done with that grieving. Let's move on now. It's time to move on. People are going to say things to y'all like, well, she was in her 90s. Yeah, but that was the only mom I had. Okay, so don't be put off by that. It's just people that don't know what to do. A wonderful website is grieve.com. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote The Stages of Grief. And if you look at the original book at the bottom in little tiny letters, it goes, and David Kessler. David Kessler was Kubler-Ross's graduate student. So her name is at the top of the book like this. His name's at the bottom of the book like this. Kubler-Ross has died. David Kessler owns grief.com. He is a hospice expert. Humans' greatest fear in death is not death, it's being in pain. And when people have reached their 70s, their 80s, and their 90s, death is no longer a scary thing. Death begins to become a part of our lives. And how many of your mother's friends are still around? So everybody wants to live to be 100. Nobody ever realizes I won't have anybody I know with me. Okay, and realize that a lot of y'all are going to hear things like, well, they had dementia. Well, yeah, but they were still my loved one. Well, you know, he was sick. Well, yeah, but that was my only dad. you know, and especially those of you who have parents that are very, when you're in your 90s, that is called the oldest old, gerontology-wise. So that is very old, but you don't get a lot of support. And then a lot of y'all aren't going to get support because your loved one had a dementia. So people are going to say to you, meaning to be nice, well, you know, they had dementia, it's better now. Maybe, but I am mourning for my loved one. So grieve.com, he has written some wonderful books in there. One of my favorite books that he wrote, he says, in the moment that someone was, that your loved one dies, you cry, oh no, she's gone. And 1,000 other souls you don't even know will cry, here she comes. And Kessler says in his book, The Needs of the Dying, he says, why is it so hard for us to believe that in that moment of birth, your loved ones were there? Your mom was there, your dad was there, your sisters, your cousins, your uncles, your grandparents. People came to see you the day you were born. He said, it's so hard to believe that on the day you die, they're not there too. So I can tell you, and there are hospice people in here, they can tell you, we see stuff that we have no way to explain except there is a higher power. And take comfort in that. Okay, but grief.com is a wonderful place to go for help. You can even print out stuff for your annoying friends of things not to say to me. He's got a whole list of stuff on there of things not to say. And it includes things like, well, you know, she had dementia. I don't care what she had. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Tam, my husband is stage 5-ish Alzheimer's. Dr. Burleson in the Malvern clinic, and he immediately put him on a clinical trial, which is supposed to, you know what they all do. But even before he started that trial, he senses a lot of head pressure, which leads to him wanting to go back to bed more, sleep more. Most recently, he had about 2 weeks of intense left temple pain. And
Does Dr. Bertelson do that?
yes, they did a follow-up scan. He's had PET MRIs, of course, multiple times due to drug protocol. Lily, he has, they're the people who fail screen little shells because they didn't have either amyloid, tau, whatever. He had it all, tangles, tau. He has both strains, APOE.
Is he having strokes?
No, but I put a strange thing. I took him to his cardiologist for an annual appointment. He said, why is he taking his aspirin a day? And I said, he told me that you told him to get off of it. I didn't go to the appointment last year. Went this year, put him back on it. And now that pain has subsided, but not this pressure.
Yeah, he's having some sort of strokes.
You think so?
Yeah.
So you would think he's not just Alzheimer's, you think?
I would think there's vascular there as well. Anytime, if any of your loved ones are on cholesterol medicine, blood pressure medicine, heart medicine, pacemaker, defibrillator, AFib, y'all are dealing with a vascular dementia as well.
So you think he has mixed problems?
Well, you put him on aspirin and one of the headaches went away, and I'm racking my brain. There is something that I've read recently that has to do with feeling that pressure.
Really? I'd love to know about it. If that is
You see Cherie Simpson as well?
Holly.
No, y'all know you have two groups in town. Dr. Bertelson is the remaining neurologist specializing in dementia. And Dr. Jerome Winston, his practice is the one that oversees all the buildings in the area for the neuropsych medicine. So the neurologist gives the Aricept, Razidine, Exelon, the Menda. The neuropsych gives the behavioral, the antidepressant, the anti-anxiety medicine.
Oh, okay.
So Dr. Winston's group needs to see him. It's Jerome, Jaron, and I believe the group is called Adult Senior Specialty. He only sees dementia people.
And that's where he gets his clinical trial.
Okay.
Also,
Yeah, they're doing a clinical trial together, Dr.
Right.
Bertelson and Dr. Winston are.
Right.
But get an appointment in there with them.
Okay.
Just to check and see, and then stay on the aspirin.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, and the pressure is here now? It's something vascular is happening. And remember on TIAs, you have 100 billion neurons in the gray matter of your brain. You have 400 billion glial cells in the white matter of your brain. You have 100,000 miles of blood vessels. So you can have stroke activity that can't be seen on anything because it's smaller than a grain of sand. But the cumulative effect over time is multi-infarct dementia, but it would feel like pressure and it would feel like a headache. I hate to say headache because then you're having a headache and you think, oh crap, I've got it too, but stick your tongue out. If you stick your tongue out, you just have a headache, you're not having a stroke. Well, it's pressure, yeah. And it probably feels like if he squeezes his brain, it would stop. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, thank you so much. This has been eye-opening. I'm really learning for the first time. Anyway, my husband is 75. He is going to get his results from the neuropsychology testing Thursday. That's where we are on this. My current crisis is that he needs some major dental work.
Okay.
He's having pain. The dentist recommended pulling 3 teeth and doing partials.
Mhm.
And my husband didn't say anything in the dentist's office, but the next day he says, I'm never going back to that dentist again because he drilled into my teeth. That's what's making them hurt. The only thing that dentist did that day was to get.
Let's look at it. Yeah.
I
His
don't
teeth
know.
hurt.
He's in pain, but he's traumatized, like you said, traumatized by it all. So what do I do? I can't.
So here's what you do. You need to call Arden Courts, ask them who the dentist is that works with dementia people. Try Carencia, they'll know. Somewhere in Austin is a dentist who works with dementia. Then you're going to call your husband's doctor and you're going to tell him he needs dental work and they're going to give him something for anxiety to relax him that day.
Okay.
Okay, and then you've got to get the teeth out. The partial is probably not going to work, but you've got to get bad teeth out because this is very close to this. An infection from here can move through the sinus passage up into the brain and cause more damage. So call the communities that were here today, ask them who they recommend for dental care, because the dentists that go to those communities work with people with dementia, and then call the doctor to let them know, because they'll give you a pill or two to help calm him down the day he needs to have those teeth pulled. Okay, and then you can say, we're not going back to that bad dentist, but don't go back to the same one. Go to another one and give him something to calm him down before you get there, because you've got to get bad teeth out. That's one of the scourges of old age and dementia is, are we paying attention to their mouth? Because infection from here can quickly go to up here.
That's my fear.
Yeah, yeah, you're a good wife.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Tam, let me ask you about anesthesia. We know that from your example with the puddles and potholes, that it is a problem with people who have dementia. But if we have something that has to be
It
done,
has to be done.
at what stage are we going to be super concerned about the anesthesia?
Stage 5 or stage 6.
Okay,
They're not going to do surgery on a stage 7 person. At stage 5 or stage 6, the family would anticipate that they would see a step down from it.
so if we have someone who is living in 3 or 4 and there's a surgery that
Yeah,
actually has
It's going
been
to get
done.
it, and the family, there shouldn't be any big, they should bounce right back because there's so little brain damage at in those stages.
Hi, my question is about my parent, I think is in sort of early stage, and my brother and I are having a hard time convincing her to accept any help with anything. And so
Okay,
we're
the brain
worried.
doesn't recognize.
I
that
know, and
anything's
so we're
wrong.
worried about,
Yeah.
you know, like helping her with her finances and stuff. So what advice can you give us to help her to sort of be able to step in and help her with stuff?
We'll pray for you. I mean, once in 1,000, I'll run into a family where the mother goes, children, something is wrong. Let us go to the bank. Let us go to the legal attorney. Let us go get this paperwork done. Let me go pick out my community. And the rest of the time it's, oh my God, we've got to wait until she gets so bad she can't fight us. So very, very difficult to do what you're talking about doing. So just try to keep an eye on everything. Try to stay calm. If she begins to be convinced that y'all are trying to get her money, that's going to cause issues. And so there's just some things there. You can talk to our friend over there at the Area Agency on Aging. These were part of the Older Americans Act of 1964. They are our federal government hard at work. She can connect you to guardianship stuff because y'all may have to go for a guardianship to protect her. So that really nice looking lady in the back wearing maroon, waving at you, talk to her. But it is rare for a family, for a parent to say, kids, something's wrong with me. Instead, they treat us like we are the bad guy.
And you know, this is also a good example of where support groups can be very helpful because, you know, we keep talking about as caregivers, we are not alone in this journey. There are so many other people. This is testament to it. All of us here are going through this journey. And so a support group where you can ask this question to other people of what did you do when you noticed something was wrong with mom, and she would say, oh, there's nothing wrong with me, but you knew we needed to start protecting the finances. We needed to make sure that she wasn't going to be giving away her social security number to everybody who called. And having that advice from other caregivers can be very, very helpful. One thing that we are going to send everyone with the information that we're going to send you after the conference is a list of all of the support groups that are here in the area, the dementia support groups, so that you'll have that list as well. Who has another question for us? I'm coming right to you.
It's like we're at a game show. Carol Merrill is going to step out in front of that.
Yeah, thank you for presenting. That was really, the information was great. So my mom has mild cognitive impairment. She's been diagnosed. She took neuropsychological testing about 1.5 years ago. And so I keyed on something you said. You said a real test for dementia takes 4 days. What I remember, the test that she did was like a day.
That's the neuropsych part.
Right.
And there should also be a PET scan, CAT scan, an EEG, an EKG. There's certain blood work that's drawn. So it is, in fact, a battery of tests that take about 4 days to do. So it's not that she's going to go to the neurologist and they're going to say, oh, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we've got you all lined up. It's, if you added it all up, it's about 4 days worth of testing. It's not a 5-minute test. The neuropsych test is going to give them a huge amount of information because as she completes those tests, it gives them an idea of what areas of the brain are impacted. That's what the purpose of that is.
Okay. And then she's been prescribed. So from my understanding, you're supposed to take, you should be taking like every year if possible, right?
Take what?
The neuropsych testing.
No.
No.
Once it's done, we wouldn't want to put someone through that again. It is not a fun day for them.
Well, her neurologist prescribed another round of testing. So
Why did they prescribe another round of neuropsych?
well, so her testing wasn't necessarily conclusive. She was having, this was a period where she was having really paranoid and crazy thoughts and was basically very
Is there another mental illness with your mom?
that I'm not sure
Is
of.
she bipolar or
Well, possibly, yeah.
possibly? The testing is, that neuropsych testing is really, really difficult for them. It's really a challenging and hard day. Sharon, I'm going to send you Texas Best Practices, which is the guideline of making a dementia diagnosis. Normally, we wouldn't ask somebody to go through that testing again because it's just so difficult for them. I mean, it's not a fun day of having stuff read to you and then having to tell them the answers back in just a few minutes. And so we see people that get so agitated that they won't come back after lunch. We see people get so agitated they get up and leave the testing. So I would find out why are they wanting her to take it again and get the best practices model. I'll send it to Sharon in just a few minutes.
Okay,
And then you can print it out and see, these are the tests that are supposed to be done,
okay.
okay?
And then, so one last thing, so she lives by herself, she feeds herself, she drives herself around, she socializes, et cetera. What would your advice for me be at this point?
Go ahead and stage her when you print out your tool tonight and see what stage she's in. It's very rare to see somebody actually diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment because it's just so hard to get that person to realize they need to go to the doctor. So that is a little suspicious right there. And then if there has been a previous mental illness, such as bipolar disorder, that may or may not have been treated, an anxiety disorder or depression that may have not been treated, those things are going to impact her dementia diagnosis and process. So I'm not sure why they would want her to come back and do that testing again.
From what I remember the neurologist saying, he said like to compare and also that her first tests were not as optimal as they could have been.
Is this a neurologist specializing in dementia?
It's Dr. Tallman. I don't think he's
A neurologist who specializes in dementia?
I don't-
Most neurologists know nothing about dementia and have no interest in it. Do you know why? If I do dementia, I see 8 people a day. If I'm a regular neurologist, I see 45. Which one of those gets me a lake house? Okay, so most neurologists have no interest in that at all. Cedar Park Neurology does the correct testing. I can't pronounce the guy's name. I don't know if it's Indian or Pakistan. It's got more letters than mine does. But they do the correct set of stuff. And then Dr. Bertelson's office. Those are the only 2 groups I know of. Oh, and then what's the Mead Center at UT? The Mead Center? Maud? What is it? That's where she would go for testing. Can you spell that for all of us? Rob?
MULVA, Mulva Clinic.
Almost sounds nasty.
University
doesn't
of
it?
Texas.
Like you need an infection
Bell
shot.
Medical Center.
I don't know. It just sounds like you need a penicillin shot after you've been there. Just doesn't sound like a good name. But that would be where I would take her. When we see people that are more complex, that's where they would go to.
Tam, we've got a caregiver at home whose mother has dementia, and throughout her life, she was a musician and loved music. But at this point, she's having sensitivity to sound and light. And so being able to play her music, hear her music is painful to her. Is there some way that the caregiver can continue to connect with her mom through music?
Not through music if it's agitating to her. That's very unusual. So something has happened.
Okay.
Yeah, the sound and light, those are things the doctor needs to be called about. That's very unusual to feel like something's, because normally music would be the last thing lost. That's why we do so much activities with it. That's why it's such a big research area, because that part of the brain still exists. And normally we would see, say, somebody who played the piano. First, we would see them playing the piano. Then you would begin to recognize that they're mixing songs together that have similar harmonies. Then they begin to play the chords. Then they do the scales. Then they plink on the piano. Then they don't notice the piano anymore. So that should have been the normal progression for mom. And for mom to say the music hurts me, something else is going on, the doctor needs to be notified of, especially the light sensitivity. Something has happened. Dementias are slow progressing. When your person is suddenly different, it's either delirium, a UTI, another infection, or stroke. Those are the only things that cause a sudden change. And to have a change in music and be sensitive to light, something has happened that needs to be seen about.
We have time for maybe 2 more questions.
Who will be the lucky 2
I'm coming
questions?
to you.
The Cedar Park.
Cedar Park Neurology. neurology. And as far as Dr. DeVere retired and, but it's got to be a neurologist specializing in dementia. Okay. Yeah. Cedar Park Neurology. Well, Dr. Bertelson would have ordered the test. He should have done all the testing. He should have ordered all of the testing. The slums test was all that was given? Okay. Let me get my phone and I will send her Texas best practices. Do what? There would be an MRI, a PET scan, a CAT scan, an EEG, an EKG, and then a number of blood work. If you're low, for example, blood work that should be checked on your loved ones, vitamin D as in Delta needs to be checked. Vitamin B as in Bravo 12 levels need to be checked. Folic acid levels need to be checked, and a hormone called homocysteine needs to be checked. HOMOCISTEIN. If these basic things are out of balance, your husband will appear more demented than normal. And if you and I have these things out of balance, we will appear to be demented. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
2 years. It's a concierge practice. Actually, it's my original primary care physician. Started this concierge practice, and they limited ketogenic diet, and I'm trying to think of the name of the guy.
Yeah, the diet that we all need to be on is the Mediterranean diet. And those keto diets don't do anything to dementia.
This one wasn't strictly a ketogenic diet, but it's adding a lot of the right kind of oils, and taking them off all grains, that kind of thing, kind of makes you slow.
Yeah, that it simply doesn't work.
So I don't think so. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, remember, this is business. No, you did the right thing. If I had dementia and somebody took me off my favorite foods, I'm gonna come back and haunt you. Really, the rule in dementia is you have dementia, eat chocolate and eat dessert first. That's okay. When he hits stage 6 and he begins to lose weight and there's nothing you can do, you will be so glad that he enjoyed gaining weight. Okay, and that's a big question for families. I took my loved one to a community and they gained 20 pounds. That's because they're always feeding them, and in stage 6, they will lose all of that weight and you will cry because you can't feed them anymore. They're not interested in food, they're not gonna eat. So it's okay that he did that.
The only part of the situation
Mhm.
is extremely healthy, walking the dog.
Okay, ma'am, he's not healthy.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. I mean, other than.
Okay, the brain, okay, listen to what you said. Other than dementia, he's really healthy. The brain runs the body. He's not healthy. You just don't see the effects yet. Okay, when I see your person, when I see your people, I look at them and I see where the brain is damaged. I literally look at them and I see there's a hole here, there's something missing here, this has gone over here, and I can see that because of the way they're walking, the way they're moving, the way they're talking, the way they're interacting with others. I see what's missing. And you don't see it because that's your fella, that's your hubby. You can see stuff now.
I've been to this, there's some acceptance.
Yeah.
Luckily, our mother lived to 90, our dad 95.
Oh my God, you two better take good care of yourselves because y'all got some longevity. Y'all have got some serious DNA. Y'all better take good care of yourselves. I think that's a hard question for caregivers because I don't know that it's selfishly you're doing something for you. I think a lot of times stuff seems logical because the disease wasn't explained to you, that his brain is dying and here's what we need to do. And you didn't have all the information. So we do things that to us look logical, and then later on we feel guilty about it. A lot of times when I finish speaking, I see families crying. I see people very upset because I did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You did at that time the best you knew with what you knew. And when you know better, you do better. And that's all. You did the best you could at the time with him. And one of the things professionals told you was to put him on this diet. And so you did that. You have been nothing but a good, steadfast, loving wife. And there is no shame in that. You have been a good caregiver, and you must go home tonight and write your letter. Your sister's going to make sure you do it because she and I have made eye contact. We're on it. My phone number. I want you all to have my phone number. You really, really can call me. If you start to bother me, I'll send you a bill. And when you see what I charge per hour, you'll never call and bother me again. You really are not bothering me. Okay, you really, really are not. My number is 254-216-3668.
Will you repeat it?
No. 254. I put it on every McDonald's bathroom wall, Rob. I mean, seriously. 254-216-3668. If you send me an email at tam@tamcummings.com, I'm simply going to email you back going, what's your phone number? Okay, I don't have time to write you a 10-page letter, but call me and we'll figure it out. Okay?
I was wondering who was writing underneath my phone number at the.
Hey, I've been marking yours
And
out.
marking mine out.
Yeah. They don't need to go to age. Call me first.
That's right. We got time for one more quick question.
Sure, sure.
All right, well, thank you very much. I've
You're very welcome.
been on this journey for about 3 years and learned more today. Last couple of years.
I know, it can be frustrating.
My question is my father's got Alzheimer's, I guess, I think he's got mixed. But he's one of those people, he hasn't had the aggression, which is great, but he does not self-advocate at all. He never kind of feels what's going on. So my question is, some of these assessments, like the pain and anxiety, which has been eye-opening to listen to you talk like that, I think he does have some of those, but will those still allow me to really kind of.
Oh my God, they're designed for
everything's
us.
fine all the time.
No, they're designed for us. We're not asking your dad, do you feel good? You're looking at your dad and it's going to walk you through how he's breathing, how he's vocalizing, can he be consoled, what's his face look like? So pain, I'm not going to ask your dad pain questions because I know he has brain damage. He doesn't necessarily understand what I'm asking, nor can he tell me the correct answer. So every tool I've given you today are tools that you're going to observe and then check. So you don't have to involve him. You don't have to ask him questions. You don't have to try to get an answer from him. You're simply going to observe and fill out. But what you have to remember is I grade harder because it's not my dad.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And just by the way, my mother doesn't have dementia, but my father really was a very nasty alcoholic. So just so you know, part of my story was not a lie.
Tam, thank you so much for not only being here today, but for being very honest with us. And a lot of times it is hard for us to hear those honest answers. I'm going to ask Steve to come up here real quick. We want to thank the wonderful folks here at Riverbend Church for their generosity and being so fabulous in hosting this. This is the 9th year that they have hosted this incredible conference. And so we so appreciate them making this available to the community as a gift.
And I don't know where Sharon went, but we need to thank Sharon.
Yes.
She hired me.
Yes, Sharon Butler, who has been responsible for putting this together since the beginning, is just an amazing person who does this as a volunteer gift to the community. So we thank her so much for that as well. Since we are here at the church, we would love to have Steve do a benediction for us and bless us on our way home.
You mentioned a while ago about outhouses. I had a two-holer. So.
I know you already bragged about your two-holer. You don't understand, that's fancy. Those of y'all not old enough, that's fancy, wasn't it?
Fancy,
Two-holer.
that's right. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, help me better understand and believe I can do what you asked us to do.
Forgive me for the times, even now, when I question your judgment. As I go about many daily tasks of caregiving, give me energy. As I watch my loved one oh so slowly walk across the room, give me strength. As I answer his or her repeated questions just one more time, give me patience. As I look for the solution to whatever the most recent concern is, give me wisdom. As I reminisce with him or her about the good old days, give me a moment of laughter. As I get to know my loved one in a new way, seeing both his or her strength and frailty, give me joy. As I sit beside my loved one's bed waiting for his or her pain medication to take effect, give me comfort. Lighten my burden, answer my prayer, and give me the strength to do what so often seems impossible. Give me a quiet place to rest when I need it, and a quieting of my anxieties when I'm there. Change my attitude from a tired, frustrated, and angry caregiver to the loving and compassionate one I want to be. Remain my constant companion as I face the challenges of caregiving. And when my job is through and it's time for me to let go, help me remember he or she is leaving my loving arms to enter into your eternal embrace. In the name of our Lord we pray. Amen.
Oh my God, that's the most beautiful prayer I've ever heard. Can I get a copy of that?
Yeah.
Did you just make that up off the top of your head?
No.
Wasn't that the most beautiful prayer? That should
I
be the
didn't make it
official
up, I wrote
caregiver
it,
prayer.
so.
It sounded like you wrote, that was beautiful. Thank all of you today. God bless you on your journeys. God bless you for what y'all are doing. It is hard. Turn to each other, lean on each other, find the support groups. There are groups here to help you. You can always call me. I'll let you call Rob.
Yeah.
And
And always,
phone number.
yeah, and always remember, there is never, ever any shame in asking for help. You know, as caregivers, we cannot do this alone. We always need that assistance. Coming here today is fantastic because we all got some wonderful help in our journey. But always remember, there's never any shame in asking for someone to help you in your journey. That's why our organizations exist.